Welcome to Excel magic trick number 777.5. If you want to download this workbook, click on the link below the video. Hey, this is a amendment or a response to Excel magic trick 777. In that video, we talked all about SUMPRODUCT function. But in that video, all the criteria we looked at was AND criteria. That means A-N-D, AND. That means when we did two criteria in order for something to be added or summed, we had to get true, true. When we did three criteria, it had to be true, true, true. That's AND. Or criteria is different. For example, if we have criteria, please count how many of these transactions are in the year 2010 or in the year 2008. We'd race through this column. We'd ask the question, is this year equal to this? False. Is this equal to this year? True. So notice we got a true and a false. Only one of them has to come out to be true in order for this record to be counted. As we go through this, here we get a true. Here we get a false, 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 false. Here we get a false and then a true. Now we want to notice something because there's two different types of OR formula constructions we use inside of SUMPRODUCT. In this case, when we ask the question, year equal to this or year equal to this, we're never going to get two trues. We're always going to get one false and one true, or two falses, right? So if that's the case, we can construct our formula by using the plus symbol. Now, we're going to build our, just like we did in the last video, an array of trues and falses for 2010. Notice it would be false, 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 true, true. So these are all falses, and the last ones are true, true. Our second array of trues and falses for 2008 will be true, true, false, 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 true. All right? Now, here's the thing. Because it's OR, and because we're never going to get two trues, we can simply add. For example, for 2008, we're going to get a true and then ultimately a 1 right there. There it is. But for the 2010, we got a 0. So when we add these, it's 0 plus 1. Down here, when we're doing 2010, notice there's a 10 there. And in this array of trues and falses, there's a true, and there's a corresponding false over there. Our 1s would be 1 and 0. So the fact that we're never going to get two 1s corresponding in the two arrays means we can just do plus. The other thing before we jump in and do this formula is that we saw in the last video we had to convert trues and falses to 1s and 0s using double negative. Well, in this case, since we're going to do any operation on a true and false converts it to 1s and 0s. So all we're going to have to do is not use double negative, but simply plus, right? If we do any operation, then it will work. So ultimately, a false plus a true will give us 1. And I can prove it to myself by going false plus true. And it's 1. So any operation, right, will give us, convert these to 1s and 0s. All right, let's go ahead and build our formula. Equals SUMPRODUCT. No double negative, but we do need to open parentheses, highlight this whole column. But oops, these are serial numbers. So I'm going to have to use the year function, just like we did in our last video. Highlight all of these, close parentheses. The year function expects a single serial number, which represents a date. But because we gave it a range, when we evaluate this, and I'm going to use the F9 key, you can see, sure enough, it delivers lots of years. It converts from serial numbers to years, Control 0. Now I can simply equate that, say anything in that array equal to this first one. Now close parentheses and plus. This is the operator that converts the trues and falses to 1s and 0s. The same thing again. Except for this time, I'm going to say equals to this. Now, why do we have to do the parentheses around this? Because in the order of operations, not just for math, but all of the possible symbols that Excel uses in evaluating, comparative operators are way at the bottom. Plus is evaluated before comparative operators. So we have to force this equal sign first by putting it in parentheses. Now, we can simply highlight this, and I want to prove to ourselves that we do not need the double negative, that plus sign will work. If I hit F9, the evaluation key, you can see sure enough, false plus true was 1. False plus true was 1. And down here, we got ones, ones, ones because we had a false and a true in some order. Now I'm going to Control Z. I don't want to leave that in there, hard-coded. The sum product will then add that array. So that's the type of formula you can use when you're never going to get two trues. Now what if we might get two trues? Now look at this. Our criteria is going to be 2010. So we get true, true, or mo. So look at this. Watch this. There's all the mo's right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And here's all the 2010s, except for ding, 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 ding. We will get one true there and a true. So if we just use the plus symbol, if it's right here, if I just plus, what's going to happen? The bold trues represent true, true. Well, true plus true, and you can prove it to yourself, equals true plus true. It's going to be 2. And so we have to amend our formula just slightly. All right, you ready? Because this is the resultant array that SUMPRODUCT would add if we didn't do something. And all we have to do is we have to take this array right here and say, is anything in this greater than 0? Is this greater than 0 or 2? True. Is this greater than 0? True. Then we convert those trues and falses back to ones and zeros, and boom, we have our OR criteria inside of SUMPRODUCT when there's a possibility of two trues. So equals SUMPRODUCT. And I'm going to need a bunch of open parentheses, but let's just pretend I don't know yet. So I'm going to open parentheses and then highlight this whole range. Oops, but I need the year function. Equals anything in that equals that. So I'll close parentheses. And then I want to add, and then I'm going to do the same parentheses. Anything in this range, those are names, equal to mo. Now right now, if I highlight this and hit F9, you can see our, oh, there it is, that 2. I'm going to Control Z. So what does that mean? We actually have to put a comparative operator and say, is anything in that greater than 0? But ding, 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 that's a comparative operator. That is a plus. This gets calculated first, so we have to force it by putting parentheses around that whole thing. Now this, if I highlight this, will give us F9, our trues. But what do we know? SUMPRODUCT can't handle trues and falses, so we have to put yet another pair of parentheses around this, and then a double negative in front of it. Is that amazing? So that's the way to construct a couple arguments inside of SUMPRODUCT where there's a possibility of two trues. All right, and then enter 5. I could just show you down here. Here's what happens. Since I just simply put these in here, forgetting that there might be two trues and used a plus, of course I get 6 because I get what? Here's all the mo's. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's all the 10s. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But here I get 2, so 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 2 is 6. All right, that kind of finishes out our SUMPRODUCT. Last video, 777, we talked about lots of stuff about and. In this one, we talked about the two situations you might run into if you have OR. And don't forget, this was only true, only two criteria. You can have more than that. All right, see you next video.